Hello, welcome back. It's Christopher Taylor with Sovereign Harmony. Good to see you again. It's been a little while. Last time I was with you guys was around May or June, talking about the May and June eclipses, as well as the Mercury retrograde in Gemini and how that had to do with this sort of cat out of the bag energy. Today, I want to just meet briefly here to talk about the back-to-back full moons in Aquarius. So we had one in late July. We're actually going to have one here this weekend. And I want to talk about the significance of that in the overall picture. Today is Friday, August 20th. So we're a couple days out from that second Aquarius full moon on Sunday, the 22nd. And you'll notice I actually have a camera now. So I did go ahead and get a camera. That way you can see me while I'm going over the chart wheel that's in front of us. And like I always do, I'm using the planetwatcher.com. So Planet Watcher is just a great little tool if you're very familiar, with again the planet interpretations yourself. You don't have to have an interpretation for yourself. This just is a really great map for when certain aspects are happening. So I'm gonna, like I said, this would be pretty quick. I'm gonna focus mostly on these two Aquarius full moons and their significance in terms of the big picture. But we'll do some review as far as the cat out of the bag energy as well to kind of just follow up on that and kind of what's to come. So anyway, right now, like I said, it's August 20th, Friday. It's about 3:30 p.m. where I am. I'm on the East Coast right now, visiting family, and you can see the wheel right in front of us. So speaking of the devil Aquarius, there is the moon right now. It's already in Aquarius, so the full moon will actually be at 29 degrees Aquarius, so it's got a little ways to move through there. Uh, Sunday morning, I believe, is when the eclipse is. I mean, not eclipse, sorry, full moon, not eclipse, but full moon in Aquarius, and it'll be the second one in a row. So that's pretty rare. So the first one we had, if we just go back, I think it was the 23rd of July. So go back to the 23rd of July, and there's the sun. And if we just go ahead, get that moon opposite, so it was at about 1 degree Aquarius. So you can see the sun down there at 1 degree Leo, and the moon opposite it at 1 degree Aquarius. So at the very beginning of Aquarius, and when we having coming up this weekend is going to be at the very end of Aquarius. So sometimes they can squeeze themselves into the same sign. It's pretty rare. It's the astrological equivalent of a blue moon. Blue moon being two full moons in the same calendar month. Well, this is two full moons in the same astrological sign in the same year. So they're back to back. And it's significant if you do recall, 8 months ago, the winter solstice, we had the Jupiter Saturn conjunction at 0 degrees Aquarius. And so what this first eclipse, or not eclipse, I keep saying eclipse, I apologize. This first full moon in Aquarius is doing is it's highlighting that degree, that 0 to 1 degree Aquarius. And so and it's also conjunct Pluto in a different sign in Capricorn over here. And this is pretty significant. It's like, think of the Jupiter Saturn conjunction at 0 degrees Aquarius on the solstice as this opening of the window, and Aquarius being, the future in society, and Jupiter and Saturn just having it's a major cycle, beginning of a major cycle for a societal transformation. Key phrases like the age of Aquarius, etc. So this is related to that. It's sort of a window opening to that type of energy, to that newness, the new future that's coming our way. And so that door has been open for 8 months, and then here we are, where we have a full moon highlighting it right on the degree, but also two um, two full moons in a row in Aquarius. And if we come right up here to the 22nd, you can see the one that will be here, at 29 degrees. You can see again the sun at 29 Leo, and there's going to be the moon in the morning on Sunday morning, right with Jupiter in Aquarius. So both moons in Aquarius itself, one highlighting the actual degree of the Jupiter Saturn conjunction, and the other one joining Jupiter in Aquarius. And so this is hugely significant, and it's not disconnected. This is all kind of one sequence of energy events. And so you can think of this time, late July to late August, as when that is sort of a pathway through which the energy that opened on the winter solstice can actually start moving through. And so what unfolds over the next weeks to months is going to be related to that energy. And of course, we're in the midst of all kinds of crazy stuff going on right now with, the Delta variant now, the primary culprit, and doesn't matter if you're vaccinated or not, you still gotta wear masks in some places. And so everything we were told in 2020 about what would fix the problems, our problems with masking and social distancing would be solved when we had a vaccine, and they're obviously not. And so you can take that where you want it, but the idea is things are a little bit uncertain and crazy, and there's still a lot of that lockdown energy. And what's interesting is that, again, that previous full moon, when we had late last month on July 23rd, and that one was pretty close to Pluto in Capricorn. And it's that Pluto, if you watched my previous videos, you know that Pluto and Capricorn energy is very associated with that sort of government oppression and overreach and things like that. And we go back to the beginning of 2020 when we had the Saturn Pluto conjunction in Capricorn, and that was in January 2020. And so that set off the theme for the year. And themes for 2021 is a little more of a release of that, or a little bit more of desiring the freedom and not complying. And we're seeing a lot of that too with the rebellions against mandates and things like that. And that's very Aquarian energy that's going on there. So anytime you're seeing these protests and you got parents just outright calling out the school boards and whatnot for mask mandates for children, when the science doesn't exactly line up with the idea of children actually needing to do so to prevent the spread. And so you got a lot of parents that are outraged, and that is this Aquarian energy. And so with that Jupiter Saturn conjunction we had at the winter solstice, think of that as opening that up for basically this 2021 year, and making it much different than 2020, when compliance was kind of the immediate response, even from those who were skeptical of things. But whereas 2021, there's a lot more questioning and a lot more rebellion. There's a lot more information, and so we have a lot more data that we can actually work with. We didn't have data in 2020, and so things like the COVID situation, individuals are grouping together. This is very Aquarian, and they're rebelling, and that's that Uranian aspect, the ruler of Aquarius. And so you could see that kind of playing out here, at least with that specific situation. Okay. Now, what also is occurring here just a couple days ago. So if we come right back to where we are, you can see this is just yesterday, actually last night. So Uranus went retrograde, and that's Uranus, the ruler of Aquarius. So happening right in between two full moons in Aquarius, we have the ruler of Aquarius now turning retrograde in Taurus. Okay, Taurus being that the finances and the stability and security aspects of life and whatnot. And kind of when I see this energy, if I just look at it, and what does it tell me in English, right? It's this sort of breaking free, but also the disruptions that come from that. So I'm thinking that in the next weeks to months, we are going to see what has been kind of on the burner here, the back burner. We're hearing it from analysts and whatnot with the economy, and we already see inflation happening, and then you have this whole situation with like Bitcoin and other digital currencies, and there's always question marks about what is, where is this market going to go? Where's the economy going? I feel like there could be some breakthroughs here in the next weeks to months following this. And ultimately, this leads to better conditions, but there might be some disruptions as we head in that direction. That would be the Uranian side of it, because you can't just jump into new systems. You need the old systems to break. And so we could be at the beginnings of this, the floodgates opening and things kind of changing again, eventually for the better, but there might be some bumps on the way. So that's kind of how I see this energy moving forward with, and we'll see how that plays out. But I also wanted to just talk about going back to the Mercury retrogrades and the eclipses back in May and June. And I mentioned that it was kind of a cat out of the bag energy. So lots of information flying around, things being discussed. And I think, I mentioned the idea of aliens and whatnot, and there was something going on with UFOs and all that. And then they kind of gave us a limited hangout, gave us some information, but not all. And that's typical. So that really didn't break through. It was an example. I didn't know if that was going to be the thing, but that could have been the kind of thing that breaks through in that kind of energy. I don't think that really qualifies as breaking through, but there were some things that did come up that related to that cat out of the bag. I think the biggest, going back to this COVID situation, would be the lab leak theory, right? So last year, if you posted something on social media, for example, that even suggested that it might have come from a Wuhan lab where they worked on coronaviruses, which obviously it seems pretty logical that it could, you could get your, you'd be basically censored and it would be taken down and whatnot. And then with what came out here in the spring and early summer, now you can post those things because it is possible that it came from a lab, and it isn't determined with certainty that it didn't. So it is a possibility now. And I think the more and the more you look into it, the more it becomes obvious that it was. And so that's big, right? Because that means that what we're dealing with now, maybe it wasn't done on purpose, but it could have been some kind of negligent situation that led to it. Okay. And so you can go into more depths on that, but it's just the idea that this follows with that energy is the only reason why I wanted to bring that up. The other part of that is the involvement of funding, where the funding for that lab came from and how it actually goes back to Dr. Fauci, right? And if you haven't seen the discussions between Rand Paul, a senator from Kentucky, and Dr. Fauci, I recommend looking that up because it's just really interesting. Rand Paul basically confronts him and says, "Hey, look, you basically say there's no gain of function, but here I am looking at documents that are discussing gain of function and what the funding went to, and look, we don't no individual can know exactly what's going on, but it certainly brings up some controversy and some situation of conflict of interest, for example. And so those are a couple of things that came out with regards to COVID that were kind of a cat is out of the bag, things that were suspected, and now it's essentially shown to be true, right? Um, another thing that I found interesting that came out in that time was situations with the FBI. So we all know, the three-letter organizations, FBI, CIA, etc. They do some pretty sketchy things, right? I mean, come on, they do things to find out information, etc. One of the things I think that we really got to find out was, number one, there was supposedly some right-wing plot to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer, which is the governor of Michigan. And it come to find out that it was amongst this group, most of the people in that group are with the FBI. Okay, and so they might have enticed a couple of zealotous people to go along with some plans. It never happened, obviously, but the idea being that was the FBI trying to stoke some event, or event that wasn't actually going to happen, but make it clear that if you do these things, this is the result. You're going to get in trouble, etc. It's not out of the realm of things that the FBI does, right? The other thing with the FBI specifically has to do with the January 6th, what CNN calls the insurrection, whatever you want to look at it as, but that the idea being that number one, that it's been shown that it was not a pre-planned event, etc., which was what the media has been shouting, and number two is that there's witness testimony saying a similar thing to the Whitmer kidnapping plot, that there were people involved in the FBI that were actually opening the doors and letting people in. And of course, people in the moment go with that flow. And so why would the FBI want to incite this insurrection? But again, not out of the realm of what they do. So that's another thing that kind of came out. So I feel like there has been some things that were questioned and suspected that are now shown to be actually true. Okay, and so that is just like a rolling snowball that's only going to be picking up more as it goes down the hill, right? And then here we are with this opening that kind of takes that Jupiter Saturn in Aquarius conjunction from the winter solstice a step further, and there's this kind of sense of rebellion, and again, people are digging into information and wanting to essentially move on with the future and not be held back by things that by mandates and things like that, especially when we're finding out things that are showing us that, say, our government, for example, is or might be involved in stirring the pot essentially. And so once we kind of know those things, it makes it all the more important for us to start rebelling and moving forward. Okay, so this Aquarian energy is pretty strong right now, very strong right now. And again, with Uranus going retrograde in Taurus, I feel like the security is questionable right now. There's some instability in the air, and what happens with the economy, we're not sure in the next weeks to months. What's going to happen with rebellion against restrictions, because we have Jupiter is going to be in Aquarius right on through the end of 2021, and you can just kind of feel the energy. Obviously, in October every year, viruses increase, and the death in viruses increases. Is part of the yearly cycle of humans. Since or it's just that's when more people are going to die, is during those months from October to April, for example, and those statistics are going to be used against us. Essentially, we know that. But this time around, with all the data and information that people have, and that Jupiter and Aquarius, that kind of represents this sort of collective um, need to expand that freedom, and in the coming together of individuals for that, it's going to be tougher and tougher for any kind of mandates to have the kind of power in force that they had in the beginning of 2020, for example, when people just said, okay, we'll just do this temporarily and it'll all work out. And then it wasn't temporary. And so, but this is gonna really test the situation to see, are people thinking with their own sovereign minds, looking at data, realizing that there are certain mandates that maybe have nothing to do with health, for example. Okay, and recognizing where the government, or where, like, we talked about the whole funding thing with the Wuhan lab, and then the FBI involvement in inciting certain things to happen. So the level of trust in those agencies that are making these mandates also erodes, and I think that's kind of where we're at now collectively. You can kind of feel it. The tide is turning. I think last year, midpoint in the year, I think the majority of people were kind of trusting authorities, and kind of taking things in stride, and trying to get through a tough time, right? A tough time that supposedly wasn't of our own volition. And this time around, I feel like the majority of people are on the side of, okay, something isn't right, and we have the data to show it. Whatever we're talking about. And so there's going to be a lot more organized refusal and rebellion when suspicions of certain mandates and authoritarian dictates start to show themselves to be true. So it's not going to be easy to hold people down or tell people what to do here going forward. But anyway, that about wraps it up. If you have any questions, let me know. You can comment below on YouTube. Feel free to follow me for more daily updates on Facebook. Sovereign Harmony, it's right on Facebook. Sovereign Harmony Astrology is actually what I call it on Facebook. It's also on Telegram as well. Same thing, Sovereign Harmony Astrology. So feel free to do that. And if you are interested in how these energies might affect you, how it looks in your chart, where these full moons are falling, for example, in Aquarius, where that Uranus and Taurus is going retrograde, feel free to contact me for a personal consultation. Love to help. So until next time, thanks for stopping in. Please watch, share, send it to anyone you think would like to see it. And signing out, it is Christopher Taylor with Sovereign Harmony. Good to see you again, and we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.